Hi everyone, it's Jessica. Today I am playing with the Smitten collection from Close to My Heart, which is part of the Valentine's Day special. Here you can see a little look at some of those papers. I've already been playing with mine, and so I just have a couple of scraps that I'm playing with here. And for my first card of the three that I'm going to make, it is from this pattern 21 from the Make It From Your Heart volume 2. And this one comes together so quickly, and it is so easy and perfect for scraps because really all you need are 1 1/4 inch squares out of 3 different pieces of pattern paper. And so you're going to cut 4 squares out of each of your different patterns. And so I have just pulled a couple of my favorites, and like I said, I'm working with my scraps here. And the nice thing about this being double-sided is after I cut that 1 1/4 inch strip, then I just kind of flipped it over and I was able to get 4 of each side on that one piece of paper. And so that was perfect. And then I had just a little tiny scrap left. And then I turned to the other pattern that I wanted to use. I think I'm gonna go with the arrow side. And again, just 4 squares that are 1 1/4 each side. And so now I am going to just take a quick second to edge distress them in both Capri and raspberry ink. So I will do those 2 pink papers in the raspberry color and the Capri gingham here in the Capri, as well as this other little Capri cardstock piece that is cut to 1 inch by 2.5. And that's going to be the mat for the sentiment. So while I've got my Capri ink out, I will just go ahead and hit that one up real quick. Okay, so I've already gone ahead and used the thin cuts that come with this stamp set to cut out this darling little bee. And I did stamp him in intense black ink because I will be coloring him with my tri-blend markers. Now you can see there are a bunch of thin cuts that do come with the stamp set, and so that makes making your Valentine's Day cards really simple. Now I have pulled a piece of ballerina cardstock and I'm using the darker side, and I did just sand down the edges to reveal the white core. And then this pattern just calls for, putting your squares down 1/4 inch from the bottom and from the side. And so I am using my Versamat and T-square ruler to line everything up, and then you just start putting them down. And so once you get that first bottom row kind of figured out, then it goes pretty quickly from there. So you're going to keep everything in the same order, only you're going to stagger which pattern paper goes first in the row. So now I'm going to start with that arrow paper, and that one's going to go first. And then to the right of it will be that raspberry heart paper like it is in the bottom row, and then finally the Capri. And again, I just keep kind of alternating those, and by looking at that pattern book, it's pretty easy to tell, which one goes where. And then once you kind of make one, then you can just glance at your first card that you've made, and really it's pretty quick to mass produce this, especially if you're making a bunch of Valentine's Day cards. And so I'll just put that final row together, and I love how this looks like a little patchwork quilt almost, and it's just such a fun way, like I said, to use scraps and to really work in a bunch of those different pretty patterns that are part of this collection. So let's get that final piece on. All right, and so that card front is ready to go. Now we just need to work on the sentiment and coloring in our cute little bee. Okay, so there that is, and it looks like actually it was a little bit off-centered, but that's okay. All right, I'm using my tri-blends, and those are the colors that I have grabbed, and I won't do all of the coloring on camera, but I did just want to share with you what colors I had pulled. And so I will go through and color my bee. And the one thing I did want to share with you is that after I had used the blue marker to go around the edge of his wings, I grabbed that colorless blender and just went over it just to soften that up a little bit, and that kind of gave it a really fun see-through sort of look on his wings. Okay, there's a cute little sentiment that goes with the bee, and it says, "Will you be mine?" And so I'm going to stamp this in black ink, and that white piece of paper is cut to 3/4 by 2 1/4, and then it's just matted on that piece of Capri cardstock. And then I've gone through my stash of embroidery thread, and I pulled one that matched that Capri color, and I'm going to wrap that around the front of my card. And so I'm just kind of finding a spot where I've got all 6 strands because I wanted it to be a little bit thicker. And then I will wrap it twice, just kind of right here along between the bottom row and the next row up. And I'll secure it in the back just to kind of hold things in place before I get this onto my card base. And I don't know, I just really like how the thread kind of adds a fun little pop of color that matches the papers and just a little bit of interest in texture. So I'm going to put this down. I thought about popping the sentiment up on foam tape, but I've got my bee with a little bit of foam tape behind him ready to go. And so I decided just to put my sentiment down flat to the card and give it a good push because I do have that thread behind there. And then, like I said, I've already gone ahead and put some regular foam tape behind my bee. And then he is going to fly right over that top corner of the sentiment, and this card is done. It's so pretty. I love all those colors and all those patterns. And like I said, it was very simple and very easy to do. Okay, for the second one, we are going to be using Make It From Your Heart Volume 5, and this is one of my favorite patterns. It's pattern number 27. I love this pattern in this book, and again, I'm just using some scraps, some zip strips. I've already been cutting into these papers, and so I'm just kind of showing you how I have pulled some of those together, and then I cut everything according to the directions with the exception of one piece. So this one right here, again, I'm using scraps, and I didn't have a piece that was big enough. I was able to make it 4 1/4 horizontally the way that it needed to be, but I didn't have enough to make it as tall as it needed to be vertically. So I'll show you here in a quick second how I made that work anyway, because the top part of it's going to be covered and you'll never be able to see, and so that's fine. So on this particular pattern, you're going to be cutting 2 triangles out of the bottom corners, and so it tells you the measurements of how to come down from the top, and then I just use my pencil and my Versa mat to figure out where those need to be, and I just make little pencil lines, and then I line up both of those pencil marks in my paper trimmer, and then it's very easy to cut that shape out of the paper. And so now what you're going to do is if you notice when you cut them, those triangles you cut off are actually the same. That's what keeps it that nice staggered look going all the way up. So just to make life simple on myself, I just kind of use that triangle to see, well, how far up do I need to measure from the bottom? Because otherwise the pattern has you measuring down from the top. And remember, this particular piece was a scrap, and I didn't have it, tall enough is what it needed to be, but that was fine. I just needed to kind of get creative and do math, guys. This involved a little bit of math for me, but if you have a full piece of paper and you are following this pattern, then it's much simpler than the way that I had to go about and figure it out. So there, that works. And then I did just off camera edge distress each of those in some various colors that go along with this paper pack. And then I used that little zip strip and also the heart die that is in this to cut out that heart. And then same thing that I did in the last card, I sanded down my piece of Capri cardstock like I did on that ballerina piece, just to add some interest to the edge of my paper. Okay, now again, if this had been the regular size paper, then this would go all the way flush up to the top, but I just had to measure, how short was I, and then come down and put it down that way. So again, I apologize for making it confusing, but if you have this pattern book, then very easy to follow the actual dimensions, but I was trying to use up some of my scraps. And then basically those 3 pieces that you cut just get layered one on top of the other, and then that way only a little bit actually shows except for that top piece. And so that was why I was able to kind of fudge things a little bit. And there, like I said, this is probably one of my favorite patterns in the volume 5 of the Make It From Your Heart book. I just love it. And again, such a great way to bring in a bunch of different patterns. Okay, now I wanted to add a little bit of faux stitching around the edge of the Capri cardstock, and so I grabbed my white gel pen and I'm just making some little stitch lines, and I love the way that they look because I did sand down those edges to reveal that white core, so it was already kind of distressed looking, and then I just love that extra little bit of white that the gel pen brings into it. And that was a simple, little touch that probably was my favorite part of this entire card. Okay, and then this is a piece of zip strip from the top of one of the papers, and I believe that is cut to, what is it? Oh, it's 2 inches long, and I've just dovetailed it. And then it's going to go 1/4 of an inch up from the bottom of the card. And then I'm going to take that heart that I had cut out with that die, that thin cut, and I'm just going to pop that up on some foam tape. There is a stamp that goes along with that die, but it says angel face on it, and I just wanted to use the shape of the heart and one of the pattern papers that I had already used on the card front. So, you know, I just used the die. Didn't need to use the stamp for this one. All right, and then there's this adorable little koala, and again, I will color most of him off camera using my tri-blend markers, but he is so adorable, and he's got this cute little heart balloon that says, I think it says "Be Mine" on it, and I just love how that blue marker kind of really picks up that capri color that's in the cardstock and the pattern paper, and it's so fun. And so we're just going to pop him up on some foam tape, and then we're going to put him over to the left-hand side of the card, over where all of those pattern papers are. And then this card is done. All 3 of these cards that I made for this video they came together very quickly, and so they were a lot of fun to make. I can't get over how adorable all these images and sentiments are on here in the papers. Okay, and so the 3rd card is now coming from the Make It From Your Heart Volume 4. This one is pattern 20, and I've already gone ahead and cut my pieces. I just need to dovetail this piece of capri cardstock, and then I'm also going to, off camera, edge distress all of those in their coordinating ink colors. So I'll do the capri for those ones, raspberry for those ones. And then I need to actually do a little bit of heat embossing on this little strip of cardstock before I start adhering everything together. So I used my anti-static pouch just to keep my embossing powder where I want it to go. And then I'm going to get myself ready here. I'm going to be stamping. There is one sentiment that says, so "You are sublime, Valentine." And there's a cute little line that has hearts coming out the top of it. And so that's what I'm going to stamp on here. And I'm going to make sure to put that sentiment over towards the left-hand side of this piece, because I'm going to end up taking that lime and I'm going to put it over to the right-hand side, kind of coming over the top of this little banner. So I wanted to make sure that I had room to do that as well as have that sentiment on there. So if you are making this for yourself, just make sure to stamp that over to the side. And then off camera, I did set that with my heat gun. And then now let's take this this lime. Now here's the thing, the sentiment says sublime, so I assume that this is a lime and not an orange or a lemon, but there's no green in this particular paper pad. And so I just picked green apple because, you know, all the other colors are really bright and fun, and I think that green apple is a really bright and fun color. And even though the green apple doesn't appear in any of the pattern paper, I think that it works really well. So I've just used a full stick sticky note to mask off that part of the stamp that has the hearts on it, because I only want the lime itself to be green. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp that down on this little piece that I've used the coordinating thin cut for. And then I'm just going to reverse that same process, only this time I'm going to use the raspberry ink, and I'm going to mask off instead the lime part so that I can stamp the little hearts in raspberry. And so I think actually the way that this stamp is set up, there's enough of a gap between those two that you want different colors on that you could probably just very carefully ink up your stamp by getting the edge of your ink pad and not even have to worry about masking things off. But I did, just to make sure. I just did. But I think, like I said, I think you could do it without masking it. And so now we have 2 different colors on that fun little stamp. Okay, so let's take our White Daisy card base here, and our first piece of paper, which is that blue one, that capri, that's going to come 1 inch down from the top. And this card, again, all of these are so simple. It's just kind of a matter of stacking your papers and they assemble very quickly. So we'll put that one down 1 inch from the top. And then next is going to be the striped piece. And this is only a 1/2 inch, and so this would be a good way to use a zip strip as well, although this is just a 1/2 inch strip of that one pattern paper. And then finally, we're going to use that raspberry colored one that has all of those fun hearts on it. And then that capri cardstock that we stamped the sentiment on, that's going to go 1/4 inch from that bottom piece of paper. So there ends up being 1/4 inch of that the heart piece showing on the bottom and 1/4 inch of the stripe piece showing on the top. So just kind of centering it between those two pieces so that it has 1/4 and 1/4. And then, like I said, we're going to take that lime and we're going to put it just over top of that sentiment. So I'm going to pop it up on some foam tape and stick it over to the right side of the card, just in that little gap, yep, right there between the edge of the card and the sentiment. And then I thought it needed just a little something else. So there's this tiny, tiny little heart, so cute, that is on that stamp set. And I think I'm just gonna add a couple more little pops of raspberry here. So we'll take that and stamp 3 little hearts just over to the left side of that line. And then that card is done. And that's it. So I hope you guys have enjoyed. The Smitten collection is so pretty. I have been having so much fun making cards with it. I'm going to have to make a layout soon before I use up all of my paper on cards. But I hope that you have been inspired. If you love this collection, it is available from Close to My Heart through February 28th of 2022. It is the Valentine's Day special. And I will have here at the end my website if you are interested in that. Plus, I will link it down below. You can see here is that fun stamp set, and it does come with the option of thin cuts as well. Well, guys, that's it for me. I'm gonna off to make some more Valentine's Day cards. So happy crafting. I'll see you guys later. Bye.